today's episode of Allo Lebanon about the Lebanese economic and political crisis. I am Viera Obeid, I'm your host today, and we have here with us today Monique Saikali, who is the events and fundraising manager of the NGO My Schools Pulse. Monique, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the NGO you work for?
Okay, hi Vera. First of all, thank you for having me. Well, I am Monique Saikali and I've been with My Schools Pulse for the past 5 years. It's the only Lebanese NGO that brings school to sick kids in hospitals between the ages of 4 and 18. And these kids suffer from life-threatening illnesses and they can't go to regular school. So we provide them with tutoring to balance that loss. It's key that these children don't lose 1 or 2 years of school while they undergo treatment. So My Schools Pulse was founded 11 years ago and we're present in 5 hospitals across Lebanon. So far we've provided around 32,000 hours of tutorship and for a total of 657 children. So since inception in 2010, we've always been self-funded and relied on private donors, sponsors to our events and fundraising events to fund ourselves. But in the past few years, due to the growing economic unrest, we haven't been able to raise the sufficient amounts. And since March 2020, with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, we started tutoring online with our children. So our schooling did not stop, our tutoring did not stop, everything was continuing. It took a bit of time to adjust to the new schooling system, like all the other kids. But now we're back with full schedules and all the kids are being reached and tutored.
Monique, what are the main problems or struggles caused by the crisis?
First of all, we've never received any funding or help from the authorities because, well, that's the way it was, and we had to rely on ourselves, whether it's financially or with academically or anything. And after the 2019 crisis that began in October, we haven't been able to raise any funds at all. So it's been a real big struggle, and we decided to turn to outside of Lebanon to get funds or help or in any way.
Is there any chance our listeners can support you?
Of course. If they go to our website, it's www.myschoolspulse.com. They can donate online, it's available, and we would welcome the help because we're struggling. And since we are the only NGO doing this mission in Lebanon, it's crucial that we continue.
What are other struggles or problems? I know when the explosion happened in August 4, I know you contacted me. I was traveling, I was just in Slovakia, and you were trying to get some medicines for the kids, even though it's not your mission at all.
Yeah, well, it was devastating. The explosion was devastating for Beirut, but especially for 2 of the 5 hospitals that we work in. They were really near the center of the blast. And the hospitals were completely demolished. The kids, thank God, thankfully, the children did not have a single scratch by miracle, but their parents weren't so lucky. A lot of them were wounded. One of our little girls lost her father, who was with her in the room. And it was very hard and traumatic. And the kids had to be evacuated to hospitals outside of Beirut during the night. And unfortunately, these kids had to see very harsh the reality of an explosion. And the explosion also destroyed the stockpiles of chemotherapy of these 2 hospitals. So like you said, even though it's not our main mission, we had to provide medicine for these children because they could not remain 1 week without. without that. So My School Pulse board decided to allocate $100,000 immediately from our own funds to provide for the first month of chemo medicine for these kids. And then we started a GoFundMe, a fundraising operation to continue providing chemo and all the needed medicine for these kids until the hospitals started to get themselves back on their feet. We helped around 120 children, and now it went from August till December, and thank God we were able to have a little bit of help from abroad to help these kids. But at the same time, we did a very good thing for the children. But unfortunately, we wish there were other organizations or even government who did that, who thought of these kids.
Monique, you grew up in Lebanon during the civil war. Can you reflect on your young age growing up during the civil war and compare it to the crisis happening now in Lebanon, and maybe the level of destruction? I've heard a lot of people saying whatever happened during the civil war in terms of destruction happened in just 4 seconds, and you live in the center of the most affected area. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, the war was horrible, like any war. I woke up to the civil war. I was 6 years old. It was so harsh. You couldn't live for 2 months back to back like normal. You always had to leave your house. You had your house demolished and everything. But it was over a period of 20-something years. But even with all the destruction we saw in the war, it didn't even come close to what I saw and everybody who's in Beirut saw after the explosion. The level of destruction, it was a split-second thing and everything was gone. Our homes were gone. I came back to my house I still had the walls, thank God, but everything was gone. And by miracle, my family was okay. But it's unbelievable. Anyone who even sees the pictures, it's not the same when you live it, when you see it, when you hear it. It was unprecedented, I think, even in the whole world. And but to tell you the resilience of the Lebanese people, we've been used to everything, and if we weren't resilient and such a strong people, I don't think we would have survived as a community after the August 4th blast, because even the destroyed hospitals were taking in wounded people. And I don't think you can see that anywhere else in the world. And unfortunately, we became stronger because of the war, but I think enough is enough. And the kids are traumatized, the adults are traumatized, there was
And we don't see the future.
No, there is no future. For me, I'm talking just for me, regardless of my position and work or personal, my own opinion, I haven't seen anything but war and despair since I was a kid. So I don't see any chance for development, and that's very sad to say. But since October of 2019, things have been getting worse and worse and worse. So you had the economic crisis, and then you had the pandemic, and then you had the explosion, and I just one of these 3 items,
it's like a snowball.
Yeah, one of these would have put people on their knees. So what can exactly
Imagine
3 back to back?
A set of them.
Yeah. So I'm not optimistic, unfortunately.
We reflected on the young generation the other day with Natalie Hani, talking about how amazing this young generation is, how they, after the blast especially, went into the streets and helped people to clean their houses. Do you have such experience?
Yeah, of course. I mean, all around me, all around me, my friends' kids were going. They were going to help, and there's that hopefulness of youth. I believe at their age, I was hopeful too. At their age, I engaged in. Trying to improve things. I was hopeful for Lebanon. I think it's a generational thing where you're young and you believe you can make a change. But as an adult, I'm more realistic now. And unless something major happens to unite the people, I don't think there will be any change.
To switch into more positive note, Monique, I know you as a person who loves life, who enjoys life. How did the crisis influence this, your happiness?
Well, like I said, we are resilient and we adapt, but I'd be lying if I said that I was happy all the time. I'm not happy. It's very hard to keep a positive mind, but what happened was that I'm very fortunate. I'm one of the very few fortunate who still has a job, still has a more or less normal way of living, but other people haven't been so fortunate. But what I did was I still saw my friends, but instead of going to the pub, we had virtual happy hours, and you just adapt adapt to the surroundings. I mean, every time there was a possibility, we'd go out, we'd sit on the Gemaise stairs before the explosion and have a drink there, 2 or 3 people. Or when they opened up a bit before Christmas, we went out a few times. You still manage to find happiness, or maybe it's a way to forget the harsh reality. But I mean, it's not easy, and you have the guilt that you can still have a life, but other people don't. But at the same time, if you don't pursue your own happiness, there's no way you can continue.
Thank you, Monique, for your wise words. I'm Vera Obeid. Thank you for listening Allo Lebanon. And if you like to support the NGO My Schools Pulse, please visit the website www.myschoolpulse.com. This podcast was brought to you by Lynn and Leah Obeid as well. Our next guest will be Camille Abdul Baki, a Lebanese student who will share his journey with us, the journey that brought him from abroad to Lebanon, and now he is again considering leaving Lebanon.